A zombie, a ghost, and a werewolf walk into a bar, and this review happens. So, I read the entire iZombie comic book series, all 28 issues in the span of 2 hours, and boy, let me tell you, this was a ride. iZombie follows the life of Gwen Dillon, a zombie who works as a gravedigger in Eugene, Oregon. In order to be close to a ready food supply, she needs to eat one brain a month or she turns into a shambling creature out of Night of the Living Dead. When she eats brains, however, she also gets the memories that they come with. These memories always lead to some mystery that Gwen needs to solve. So what we have here is Gwen and her friends, Ellie and Scott. Now, Ellie is a ghost from the 60s, and Scott is a were-terrier. Think of it like a werewolf, but he turns into a Scottish terrier and not a wolf. It's a very interesting premise. It's kind of like a reverse Scooby-Doo here, where you have these three sort of universal monster sort of tropey characters trying to solve mysteries and murders from the brains that Gwen is consuming. And that I love that. Like as a teenager, I would have been all into this thing. It would have been right next to Nightmare Before Christmas and Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and all the edgy, stupid things you are into as a teenager. And on the surface, that premise leads me to assume before I read this that I'd be getting procedural sort of mysteries being solved by this ragtag group of monsters. Like different solving different murders, and it would be a long running sort of series. And that's where I guess either I've been misled or the writers potentially failed to do, because that is not what this story is about. So let's get into it. I'm going to read you the synopsis on each of the trade paperbacks. There's four of them, just so you can understand where I'm getting at here. I've already read the first one to you, kind of. So we'll get to the second one. So in the second volume, Gwen Dillon dines on the grey matter of a person who knew her as a child, and things quickly get complicated. Meanwhile, Ghost Girl Ellie learns a few tricks from Amon the mummy. Spot, the were-terrier, meets someone from Gwen's past, Galatea engages in some grave robbing, and monster hunters tackle the town's vampire problem. Then in Volume 3, Spot tumbles into a cemetery sinkhole full of hungry creatures. Gwen's monster-hunting boyfriend might uncover her big secret, and the dead presidents arrive, intent on taking names in a city infested with skee-ball fanatics, mad scientists, and shambling zombies. Volume 4. Once upon a time, Gwen's biggest concerns were finding a brain to snack on and worrying whether her boyfriend would find out she was a zombie. Now, with undead secret agents and monster hunters teaming up to stop a mad scientist from bringing about the end of the world, and her friends stuck right in the middle of it. Gwen has bigger problems on her hands, but can a girl help save the world without losing everything in the world she loves? Now, if you're having trouble following along with that and working out where we went from mystery solving Scooby-Doo to saving the entire world from undead secret agents, monster hunters, and mad scientists, so was I. I was so freaking confused. Because this is only 28 issues long. You can read it in a couple of hours. So I'm sitting there flipping through pages going, oh, this is fun. Yay, look at this. We're solving mysteries. And then out of nowhere, bam, monster hunters. Bam, mad scientists. Spoiler alert, the end of the comic book has Cthulhu summoning into the realm and attacking the entire city. But that's, before. After you have all of this other stuff. And I'm thinking, what is going on? I haven't even brought into the fact that one of our main characters' grandfather is a spirit inside of a monkey, and all sorts of other things. And that is where this comic book loses me, and unfortunately, I think would lose a lot of people. Had this been a series just about sort of the sort of teenage slice of life tropes of a zombie trying to find romance while solving murders with her weird supernatural friends and, hiding that from the world. This could have been a long running series. We're talking 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 issues maybe of just various interesting cases. And it could still be ongoing today, similar to what you would find in like a superhero comic where we just reiterate and do things again and create new and unique, interesting stories for these characters. But for some reason, the writers decided to go the complete opposite direction with this and start adding in secret agents and monster hunters and vampires that were, working with a mad scientist to summon Cthulhu. And I read the comic less than 24 hours ago, and I still don't understand what the heck that was all about. You've got zombie Abraham Lincoln, a monkey human, and it just, like, the comic in 28 issues just spirals out of control. And it's so confusing to read. And it gets to the point where I finished it, and I was like, I feel nothing. What the heck just happened? Like, that was the honest response I had when reading this comic book series. And it sucks because the original premise and the first couple of issues, I really feel for these characters. I love Gwen as a character, and I love her friends. They're interesting, they're nuanced, they've got all the right sort of teenagey, angsty mixes between them, etc. And it's a lot of fun, the interactions between them. And had that sort of loop continued, I would be sitting here raving on about this book. It would be my new favorite thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't, as I've just explained. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. Other than that, the art is absolutely fantastic. Incredible. And I wholeheartedly mean that. It's very, like, intentionally, like, 60s pop art. And it just works incredibly well. Everything stands out. Everything's got a strong presence. Everything looks good. The character designs are great and quirky, and you sort of know who everyone is on the screen and what their presence is. And it's angsty, and it's got that teenage awkwardness that we all love. Or at least I did anyway when I was a awkward teenager. And yeah, like everything. It's like a recipe for success until the last step, which is the way the story sort of jumps around and just spirals out of control so quickly. I mean, I don't really want to spoil it for you, but Cthulhu somehow gets in the mix of this, and like it's not actually Cthulhu. They changed the name, but it's Cthulhu. And yeah, it just, unfortunately, that's where it lost me. By all means, though, give this comic book a go if that seems like your sort of thing. Unfortunately, I would have much preferred it if they toned it back and focused on the character elements of the main characters, and instead of trying to get wackier and wackier with all these crazy elements, because it feels like the writers didn't really have an ending in sight and just sort of slammed all this together. Instead of doing that, if they just focused on murder mysteries and made this like a procedural crime comic, it would be my new favorite thing, and I'd be reading every issue of it to this day. Unfortunately, it didn't, and I'm going to have to sit it right in a 5 out of 10. The first half of this comic is great, the art is great, the writing's great, everything about it is amazing. Until you get to the second half of the story where things just spiral out of control and it makes no sense, and my head was spinning by the end of it, and I just wanted to put it down. And that's not a good sign. Like, I didn't end this feeling like, oh, I'm going to miss these characters. I ended it, like, I had those feelings halfway through. I was like, oh, I'm going to miss what this was. Because what it is now is just confusing and a mess. So unfortunately, iZombie for me gets a bad breakup out of 14. Everything was going so smooth. And then just one day you wake up and there's a letter on the bedside table, and the dog's gone, and